Boys and ghouls, to all of our non-binary friends, to everyone on the spectrum and in between, welcome to another episode of The Shutter Show. My name is Ken Stacknick. This is my co-host,
David Wesley Marlowe.
Oh, going with the middle name today.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Might as well just do the whole batch.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are discussing today the 1989 film Society, directed by Brian Yuzna.
Brian Yuzna. God damn it. Ken?
Oh. But the sounds you're making, it sounds like this movie affected you, David.
Because here's the thing, like I picked this film to put on the poll because like I knew a little bit of what to expect, which was sort of like a body horror feature. Because it was on a bunch of lists, a lot of lists of like top like gory effects or whatnot. Like it was all over the place.
Up with the cult classics list.
Yeah, cult classic, definitely one of those. And so I'm like, okay, like I've never seen this movie, and I really enjoy it when we go through films that I might not be necessarily as familiar with or I can't remember at all. Like I hadn't seen Reanimator for ages. And this was just one of those films that, having zero context, and my friend Scott from Chicago told me he was happy that this one got picked. He's like, don't watch anything in regards to like try to avoid watching any more trailers or reviews or anything before you watch this film. Go in knowing as little as possible, for which I will also say spoilers. For those folks who want to watch this before listening to this, I highly recommend doing that because the final 20 minutes of this film is just a Cronenberg film come to fucking life. It is a real, like, and Katie watched, my fiance watched the whole thing with me. She stuck it out for the whole thing. Usually she'll tap out halfway or towards the end of certain films that we've discussed on this podcast, but this one she just had to she was just so confused, and I was kind of with there the whole time, but in a very good way. I don't know, Ken, what are your thoughts on this film? Like, when was the last time when did you first see this?
I saw this movie for the first time, let's see here, probably when I was around 30, 31, somewhere in there. I was really into body horror. I was really into like movies about cults. So this movie is, a cult classic in both of those terms. And it was one of those outlier movies. It was never in the A tier lists. It was always in like, once you've seen these, hey, maybe check out these over here. It wasn't the low hanging fruit. It was always kind of like, but it also wasn't like the weird, super high hanging fruit. It was kind of this interesting mid tier. Like, you got to be into this thing, but if you are into this thing, I think you'll like this a lot.
What do you think is the highest fruit we've done so far on this podcast?
Of all the movies that we've done, the most obscure thing that we've done is probably,
what was the super religious one called?
Anything for Jackson, or
no, not anything for
the Devils.
Yes, the Devils. I would almost say the Devils was our most obscure one.
The Devils is pretty infamous, but it hasn't really been available for release. I would say that Tammy and the T-Rex was definitely more obscure until it got this beautiful re-release. Wake and Fright was lost until Cannes 2006 or something like that. So a lot of it depends on what your definition is. One Cut of the Dead, I would say, is probably the movie on here that the least amount of people have heard of.
Which is
Where
weird
like,
because Wake of the Dead and or
or Wake and
Wake and
Fright.
Fright, Wake and Fright and One Cut of the Dead are two of my favorite ones that we've done. To be
Yeah.
perfectly like, oh, I love those. Those were just chef's kiss.
Yeah, and yeah, Wake and Fright was missing for like 25, 30 years. And so yeah, I would say it depends on your definition, but this is I mean, this movie is about as subtle as a hit to the face with a sledgehammer. Mark Kermode, one of my favorite reviewers, called this movie stupid yet brilliant. And I think that kind of like this movie is about as subtle as one of the Purge movies. It kind of lays everything that it's going to do out there. It's not, it doesn't obfuscate its point. It's, I mean, it's very Rosemary's Baby-esque, except the last 20 minutes is 1,000 times more insane than anything happens in Rosemary's Baby. But it follows like a very traditional cult, like movie about cult formula, about a person who is looking for something, whether it's usually a missing person, but in this case, it's the secret about his family. And then everybody tells them they're crazy. They feel like they're crazy. And then one of two things happens. Either it turns out they're crazy, or it turns out there's really something going on. And spoiler
really
alert,
no in between there.
Well, and there really isn't any of the first one. There's almost no movie I can think of. Like, there's like maybe there's an Otto Preminger movie. Not Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. What's it called? Otto Preminger. Bunny Lake is Missing. That is what it is kind of close to maybe threading the, like, you can argue all you want about Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary got raped by Satan. Sorry. That's, I can see how you could read the movie that way, but that's also one of those, you could read Fight Club as a sequel to Calvin and Hobbes. One of those well, I mean, think about it. Like Marla and Susie are the girl that he doesn't want to be around. And then Tyler Durden is just the personification of like the person he wish he was for Calvin, which is Hobbes. And then for Edward Norton, that's Brad Pitt. It's just Calvin and Hobbes, but in your 30s. Like, just imagine it
hilariously skinny and lanky.
I mean, yeah, like just imagine if, like, when Calvin turned 12, his parents were like, okay, you're going on heavy medication because you keep pretending there's a tiger around. And then, like, he goes on all that heavy medication. And then, yeah, when he turns 30 something, you know what he does? He stops taking his meds and he goes all crazy and starts a fight club.
I would watch that movie.
I mean, that is what the movie, like, that is a reading. Like, that is a reading of the movie. Now, that's not what David Fincher intended. It's not what Chuck Palahniuk intended, but it's a reading of the movie. And I guess you could read Rosemary's Baby as maybe it's all in her head, but, like, I mean, I get, like, the number of movies that you could read as, oh, but maybe it was all a dream. Like, the number of, like one of the classic things that happens in the hero's journey, right? The Joseph Campbell hero's journey is a part where the main character dies and is resurrected. He is putting to death his old life. He has learned new knowledge with his friends on this journey along the way. And now he is rising again to with the new information that he has, and he's going to go fight the day. It's why there's almost always a moment in action movies where, like, the person gets, shot at and they have to dive out of the water, an explosion goes off, and then they emerge out of the water. Or you get something like that happens in the last Harry Potter book, where, spoilers, Harry Potter actually dies and straight up comes back to life because the plot needs.
God damn it, Ken.
Oh, what are you? Oh, that's right. You're like 3 books in. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Snape kills Dumbledore too.
No, it's not like I didn't literally grow up at the same age as, like, Harry the whole time, like, reading it book by book as I grew up with him. No, it's not like that.
Yeah, but yeah, so like what I'm saying is like because part of the traditional hero's journey is a moment where the hero symbolically or actually dies, it is very easy to read into so much, so many stories. The idea that like Act Three and after that, death and resurrection is all a dream. Like it, I couldn't even begin to list the amount of movies where that is
And
possible.
I do think at least there are definitely portions of this film. The film does a very good job at staying consistent with making all these occurrences seem like hallucinations.
Yes, so there's
make
definitely
it,
the dream stuff. Yeah,
yeah. There's this dream stuff. It's the like I love the scene, for example, where after he's sleeping with the character Clarice, played by, let's see, what was her name?
Latin Phoebe Cates.
Yes, who was previously a Playboy model when she went into this role.
Sounds about right.
Yes, yeah. Story checks out. It's but that point where he looks at it, you can see a hand coming up from her. That's definitely a strange angle. Like, oh, that's weird. And then he looks at her, and her whole torso is kind of like twisted around in this weird position. But yeah, then looking back a second later, it's not. But at the same time, it doesn't help that all the rich folks, all the members of society, are just weird as fuck. Just their behavior is not that of normal people in general.
I mean, but that, to be fair, could be said of most rich folk.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there's a lot of they do a good job of kind of making things subtle at first, and you're not sure how much of this is this kid just making this stuff up. But at first, it's pretty standard weird fare, and then things start kind of getting bigger and crazier as things go on.
I saw somebody describe the first half of this film is kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers,
a little bit,
where definitely like there are things that are off about all these people that this main character has interacted with time and time again, but now just something seems different, or a switch is flipped somewhere. And then the other half through, it just becomes a Cronenberg film. I loved the film. I love the scene where he walks into the shower to grab the sunscreen, and he sees his sister showering through the glass. But it once again, it looks like she's facing one way, but part of her torso is completely switched around.
Or she's doing like a weird dance or something. There's just like something off about her movement and like shape that just makes me like, but wait, is she like thrusting, or she have her arm in a weird like, and it's fast enough too that like you just process that something's wrong, not that, ooh, that's exactly what's wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What was it? The Brian Yuzna, one of his influences on this film is this painting called The Great Masturbator, which is a Dali painting.
Yes.
And if you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, I can totally see where the shunting comes from after taking a look at it. Like, honestly, like, just go up on Google image, The Great Masturbator painting. Maybe don't do that at work, but just, you never know what Google's gonna give you.
Well, like the paint, yes. Also, the painting doesn't necessarily contain anything explicit, but you don't probably want that in your search engine at work.
More of a just in case.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. I think this is a film that could be very, very ripe for either a remake or a sequel. I mean, it's a tale as old as time, the poor versus the rich. And I think you could make it today in a far more subtle fashion. You can still have that last 20-minute payoff of the shunt. Like, obviously, yeah, that's why you would go see this movie. But I think, I don't know. I just, other than like everything looking very, very 80s, it's safe to say that just rich people, especially like now, are just given that like rich people are now richer than they have ever been in the history of the planet. And what's the thing that, like, say Jeff Bezos now is like, well, I have so much money, I don't know what to do with it. Guess I'll shoot myself into space. Which, of course, is the first thought he has, not, I guess I'll cure world hunger. I guess I'll give everybody health care. It's just, I guess I'll shoot myself into space because fuck the poor. Like it, this is a very, very relevant film. And I think the only issue is that it hits you over the head with it a little too hard in a lot of places where like the shunting is going on. And he literally says, we've been like a great line. We've been sucking off the poor for as long as we've been around.
Okay. So one thing I need to kind of pause the podcast for just a moment because we need to talk about Screaming Mad George, because this is also known as Joji Fanny, who is in charge of the surrealistic makeup effects. And basically, from what I understand, Brian Yuzna wanted to get his directorial career started. This was one of the movies that he wanted to do it, and the producers put him in charge with Screaming Mad George, who was the one of the big driving forces for just the look. Obviously, they had inspiration from like the Dali painting and such, but Screaming Mad George is the person who made the wet puppets, who made these incredibly bizarre, weird images, ranging from the butt head to like the weird hangy tongues to like the duck lip people, what I will call mother and daughter both sharing a trench coat. Like there's so many insane, bizarre images in this that had to come from someone's deep, dark, weird mind, and that person needs to be mentioned on this, and that is Genji Fanny,
which is weird because before this I had never actually heard the name Screaming Mad George.
They had an incredibly short career. Like I think this is maybe one of the last movies that he worked on. Like I went to go look at his IMDb page, and it's a real short run. And according to everything that I'm found, he hasn't died. Some of his pictures look pretty rough, so maybe
he did The Dentist too.
Yep. Yeah. Brace yourself. Which is another Yuzna film. Which we should mention that this this is the second time on our show that we've had. Well, technically third time we've had a Brian Yuzna film. The second directorial, with The Dentist being the first one, and then the first being Stuart Gordon's Reanimator, which he was a producer on.
Yeah, which is so Screaming Mad George. Yeah, that does weird. I'm curious why Screaming Mad George is working very little, but like the huge movies that he was in include Predator, The Abyss, which is literally the wettest of the effects films. Big Trouble in Little China, The Guyver, which I have not seen. I think that's starring Mark Hamill, if I'm not mistaken. But no, like done some amazing work. And yeah, this person is just the king of wet.
I mean, the Big Trouble in Little China, I think, is the work of theirs that I can see the most. Like I can clearly see, oh, these two people clearly are like, this is the work of the same person. You know what I mean?
I've still never seen Big Trouble in Little China.
Damn it, Marlo. Okay. Well, I guess we'll wait. That will probably pop up at Shudder at some point. Shudder, if you can hear us, please put up Big Trouble in Little China. So that way David can see it and he can stop disappointing.
I know. There are some huge movies that I don't know why I just never got around to seeing it. But no, it's Brian Yuzna's career also I find fascinating, that he started his career as a producer.
Yes.
And as he describes, I've seen a couple of interviews and Q&As with him, and it almost pisses me off how he talks about how he got into this, whereas like he describes himself as a bit of a hippie in his younger years, and he and his girlfriend were on backpacking on vacation, and we're at this restaurant in this American city, and they happen to see that there was a film being shot, and then this really nice car pulls up to the restaurant where they're at, and some of the filmmakers get out, and they're surrounded by good-looking women, and they're buying all these expensive items, and to which he just looks at it like, it looks like they're having a better time working than I am on vacation. I think I want to make movies now. And having never gone to school, having never taken a class, just posts an ad. He went on. I think there a little bit more work was put on into it than I'm making it sound like, but like just puts out an ad asking for a horror film director, and eventually gets connected with no less than the director of goddamn Reanimator, and Reanimator is the film that they make. Before that, he does like
Stuart Gordon.
Yes, Stuart Gordon. And before that, I think he made like almost like what he describes as like a student film that didn't do very well. But he, as a producer, bought the rights to Reanimator and made it so he had a guaranteed 2-picture deal to sort of cement himself as a filmmaker. In case one didn't go well, he could have another shot at it. But no, I think it's fascinating just kind of where he started and then eventually ended up. And to see him talk, you wouldn't think, oh yeah, this guy likes all the weird, surreal, gory, nasty stuff. He just seems like a dad when you see him talk. But yeah, I don't know. He is a director. He fascinates me. I think his personality fascinates me almost nearly as much as Billy Warlock, in the fact that Warlock is the name that he was given at birth. That's a very badass coincidence right there.
Yeah, no, yeah. Played by definitely not John Stamos. Fun fact, actually, his dad was Michael Myers in Halloween 2.
Of course he was.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one of those. I mean, like when you're a lot of times when you're that young getting into the business, you're getting into the business because somebody else has already done the work of how to get into the business. And if your dad was Michael Myers in Halloween 2, he's going to have some names to call. And then, you're a good looking kid and you've got some decent acting chops. I'm not sure I would consider him amazing. But that said, given that this movie mostly stars people who you haven't seen in other movies and who mostly kind of look like other people you've seen in movies. Like I joke that like the main character kind of looks like either John Stamos or Scott Baio. The dad kind of is just not William Hurt. The girl is kind of Latin Jennifer Beals. Katie
thought that Billy Warlock looked so familiar. She's like, where have I seen him? Oh, Baywatch. And I just looked like, and like, oh, that's right.
Really?
Because she had told me that she and her parents watched Baywatch a lot as a kid. I know of all that.
Wait, what? That's okay. No, it's fine. No judgment.
Yeah. No judgment at all. It's just so random. But which is weird though, because Baywatch, it came out after this film, but he worked on this film before working on Baywatch, and before then, he was best known for Days of Our Lives, which when you look at the vibe of society, you're like, it is 100% a soap opera.
So this is just young Joey Tribbiani from Friends. That's who Billy Warlock is, right? Like,
yes, exactly. Billy Warlock is a young Joey Tribbiani.
Yeah, he went on this, he did this, and then he moved to New York. And
was he the nurse who got drowned by Michael Myers in Halloween 2? Was he that one?
No. He's Michael Myers.
Oh, so Billy Warlock is Michael Myers.
No, Billy Warlock's dad.
Okay, because Billy Warlock is also in Halloween 2 playing Craig.
Oh, that I didn't notice because that sounds like the guy was there and he's like, "You need a kid? I got a kid. I'll bring it." You
want to drown him?
Yeah, if you look in the credits, what is it? A Yuzna is in this credits, I believe, is playing a Conan. And I think that's, again, it was just like they needed an actor, and so they picked somebody there. Famously, if you watch Alien, when they are all walking to the Nostromo. Like there's that big wide shot. Well, the way that they did that, so they didn't have to build the biggest, like they didn't have to build this giant replica. Sorry, they're not walking toward the Nostromo. Sorry, they're walking away from the Nostromo, and they're walking towards the alien ship on LV-426. Sorry, internet, before you get furious. So as they're walking towards that, in order to build like a smaller scale ship, they put a bunch of like 7 and 8 year olds in small spacesuits and had them walk towards the spaceship. And so that way the spaceship looks way bigger. And one of those kids is Ridley Scott's kids, because they just needed someone the right size for the spacesuit. And Ridley Scott was like, well, I have a kid and they'll take SAG minimum, so let's do it. And like,
yeah, just go pull them out of school real quick.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that would be my guess on how Billy Warlock is in Halloween 2.
Huh. Okay. I really, I don't know, and it's not just, and I actually really enjoyed Billy Warlock. The performances in this film range from pretty good to, oh, they struggle to get that line out. There's a what was, oh gosh, what's his name, Evan Richards, who plays his best friend Milo. He has some of the strangest deliveries for his lines.
But he goes back and like, he's such an interesting, his performance is kind of interesting because like he goes back and forth, like between this kind, like a guy who kind of almost knows that he's in a movie and he's kind of playing it like he's breaking the fourth wall. And then also so other times where I'm like, really? That's you called print on that take? All right, Brian, you do you. Yeah, and the performances are really crazy. The performance I think that we need to talk about the most is the performance of the mom. I forget her character's name, but not the mother of the main family. The big lady from the beach.
Yes. Yeah.
It is one of the most,
Clarice's mother.
Yes. It is one of the most fascinating uses of planting and payoff. And I put that in quotes because like they set up and pay off certain things, but not in any way that you'd expect. And not, there were so many times when I was waiting for her character to build to something, and it kind of did, but it also kind of didn't, and it didn't answer
in the way
there
were no answers provided.
Yes,
zero context.
I've got to assume I know that there's a special edition DVD of this that's out with a bunch of special features, and unfortunately I just couldn't get to all of them. Plus, I don't own it. And as a result, I'm wondering, and if somebody out there has this and has listened to everything and like is maybe if there's a commentary, can tell us what the thought process, the idea behind it, what they were kind of
let us know.
Going for. Yeah, please hit us up. We got our Gmail, shuttershow@gmail.com. You can hit us up on the Instagram, shutter_show, or Twitter. Don't do Twitter, actually.
Of all the things that confused myself and my future wife, it was the mother. Because I'm like, is she part of, I'm guessing because Clarice is her daughter and Clarice is a member of society, I'm guessing that would mean that she's also a member of society. Did she just eat somebody the wrong way? And now she's sort of like mentally handicapped? That's my guess, is that there was some too much hair? Like, there was just some sort of accident during the shunting. The shunt. That kind of drive her crazy. But yeah, it's definitely not apparent in the film, and not answered to the best of my knowledge anyway. Yeah. And Ken, we do have, I do feel like we need to go into detail about the shunting, which I just learned this not too long ago before we started. According to Billy Warlock, almost the entirety of the shunting sequence and scenes, like the last 20 minutes, was shot in a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that is a lot. That from nothing
Yeah.
else. Like Yuzna deserves credit for just that technical achievement alone.
Yeah.
Like if you
Just the
just think
budget
about,
of,
well, not even just the budget. I'm talking about getting everybody in that makeup and then doing anything for the rest of the day. Like one of the things that independent filmmakers who want to make like a zombie movie in particular is a great example of, if you don't think about the logistics, you are not going to make any of your days in any way, shape, or form. Because let's say conservatively, it takes an hour per person to put on your zombie makeup. So if you need 10 zombies, you either need one person for 10 hours, in which case you have 2 hours left to shoot, and whoever was first through the makeup chair is furious. Or you need 2 people for 5 hours, or you need 3 people for 3, or 4 people for 2 and change. Well, like, yeah, 3 to 2 and 5, and in which case, like, and one of those, like, and when you think about, like, well, we have a makeup artist. Well, on the zombie day, you're going to need 5, and then it's still going to be 2 hours to get those 10 people in the makeup before you can shoot anything. So you either have to be shooting something elsewhere, or you have to be making full use of that 2 hours. And it's very easy also for, like, and don't forget, like, once they're in that makeup, well, once they hit lunch, can they eat in that makeup? Are you going to finish all the makeup and then you have to immediately go to lunch? Are you going to have to break for lunch in the middle of everybody having their makeup done? That's not, and like, so that's why I'm so crazy impressed that they were able to do the entire shunting scene in one day. That's wild from a production standpoint, unless it was like a 24-hour day, which also might have happened.
yeah. It's, yeah, having learned that just before coming on, I'm like, I don't know how that was physically possible, but, and you see that, like, it for sure would have been done in more days had they had a higher budget, but because the budget was so low on this film, that's why it all had to be shot practically in a single day. I'm sure they had pickups here and there, but outside of that,
it's a great, well, like, pickups with that are tough too, because again, like, it's a giant writhing mass of people. There's a certain amount of, you got to get people back. There's close-ups and stuff you can do, but again, it takes a lot of time. But yeah, no, for this, which from what the information I could find was around a $2 million budget. That's a lot of money, but that's not a lot of money, especially for the amount of effects that are happening here.
Yeah, especially given how many scenes in this film there are with parties and large amounts of extras, and the amount of crowd control that you have to do during scenes like that, and the kind of money that takes to manage all of those people and to feed all those people and to shoot all of those people, it's not nothing. It's pretty intense, and it's a super heavy workload, and there's a lot of hats to wear and a lot of factors to consider. So, 2 million is a pretty modest budget, all things considered, especially, given that this was only, back in like the mid 80s, which
it's 89.
Yeah. Well, like
well, 89 is
80,
released
in 89, but
it was shelved here in America because of the final 20 minutes, which are so insane and over the top. This was shelved in the US for over 3 years while they decided whether or not they were going to release it. And they released it in the US and it made almost nothing. However, it was pretty successful in Europe. And so from what I understand, did make its money back. It was considered a bomb because it didn't do well in the American market, but it was appreciated in the European market, which, I mean, good for them. The Europeans are usually better at us than watching movies. So that's probably why.
Yeah. And it's also fascinating because when you think back to Reanimator and how Reanimator did as well as it did despite not having a rating. After that, the MPAA went after anything associated with anybody working on Reanimator Like they went in on them hard, especially on the movie From Beyond. Um, the MPAA was not kind to Yuzna at all. It's like they, and it was part of it was because of like how they felt about some of the material in it, but a lot of it was just a grudge. I think they felt like Reanimator put the illusion of the need for the MPAA at risk. And so these filmmakers needed to be made an example of. And it is a fascinating observation in just the way that America censors a lot of its stuff, or at least especially like, well, the way America censored a lot of its stuff back in the day. These days, quite a bit is fine, because like we're with streaming, nothing's rated anymore. Like the point of rating something is
well, it's not rated quite in the same with the same vigor as it was before, and I think part of that is just like this movie in particular is a combination of two things that the Academy hates: sex and blood. The Academy is pretty fine with violence. You can murder a whole bunch of people, and as long as there's not a whole lot of blood, you are fine. But this movie is like wet, bloody, and on top of it, full of sex and weird. So like that's gotta, like, that to me is part of the reason why the MPAA got so mad, because they were like, this dude cannot be trusted. This guy, there is something wrong with this guy. You know what I mean? Like the images that he's putting up on screen is not stuff they've seen before, and it's not quote unquote normal. And as a result, I think they saw that as like an attack on on the viewing public at large, and that's why they came so hard down, because they were like, because this, like, in the same way that when Trey Parker and Matt Stone made Team America World Police, they purposely added a whole ton of extra super over the top graphic puppet sex, so that way the MPAA would concentrate on that and kind of let them get away with everything else. They'd be like, you can't show one puppet pooping on another puppet. And they were like, okay, we'll cut it out because you made us. And then like all the other crazy stuff that's going on in there.
Fucking genius, actually.
But I mean, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, there's also been a lot of stories about people who have gone to the MPA, sent them a movie, and they're like, you need to make you need to make these cuts. And then they were like, all right, absolutely. And then they changed nothing, sent it back 3 months later, and they were like, all right, it's fine. There you go. It's an R now. Like, and it's also part of what's wrong with the MPAA in the fact that they're not consistent. There's a documentary called "This Film Is Not Yet Rated," which is a really good overview on kind of what we're talking about in a little more detail.
Yeah, it's also crazy that until recently, you really don't, and I think it came out within the last several years, you really don't know who the members of the MPAA are.
Yeah,
most of the time, and they're all white, pretty much, is one of the big takeaways too. And it's just like, okay, by whose standard are you basing your rating of this? Yeah, but it's kind of what you said. It's inconsistent. But like the crazy thing too is like, honestly, like, because you said like that this movie's bloody. There's the only blood really that I recall seeing in this film, like drippy, wet blood, is in the car crash where his friend is believed to have died in the car crash. Outside of that, like there's like things are definitely wet, and because like the image behind me, like in the way that it's the color that it's
but the color is so all right. So there's not as much blood, but it's still very red, even in the fact that like it's literally like the scene is literally red, the walls are red, the light is kind of red. It gives all of the goop a bloodish kind of tone, where if you watch like Evil Dead 2, one of the things that Sam Raimi did in order to just like pump buckets and buckets and buckets of goop into a scene was he made it green instead of red. Famously, Martin Scorsese, when he was editing Taxi Driver, took some of the scenes and faded them down to black and white to get rid of just the color red. And then the MPAA was like, all right, fine.
Did he change it back after?
No. It's just like it's artistic, and the film now goes back and forth between color and black and white. But yeah, no, he didn't change it back, but it was just it was like the color red that they were allergic to. And this movie leans heavily into the color red. And again, we're talking about, an inconsistent governing body who we don't really know who the members are, and can be of a certain age, and can kind of get mad at whatever they want. And this, I completely also understand, like, the kind of person who becomes a ratings person for the MPAA is not lower or lower middle class. Like, they're part of society. Someone at the MPAA knew them.
Somebody at the MPAA was like, I feel strangely seen right now.
Yeah, like that's like in the same way that, like, of course, Hollywood loved La La Land, because everyone who's made it in Hollywood feels like Ryan Gosling.
Fuck that movie.
I mean, yeah, but in the same way that this movie is going to make all those people feel attacked, because, like, I mean, God, at one point they even say, like, there's no business like show business, because, as we said, this movie is about as subtle as getting hit in the face with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, I don't know. What was your opinion on the very heavy leanings into the sort of the incest parts of this film?
I think it's very on theme. I think if you know anything about like the film industry, if you know anything about the upper echelons of things, it's very incestuous. Yeah. Even if all your meaning is, like, they tend to, like, not even necessarily, like, not even like above and beyond nepotism. There's a lot of, hiring the kid from down the street. There's the moment where the kid is like, oh, I think we'll have the judge says, I think we'll have an internship available in Washington soon. There is this whole, we keep it in the family, even if that family is like the business family. There's a lot of networking that goes on in churches, or in Elks clubs, or in Rotary clubs, or what's the not the
Freemasons.
The Masons. Like, there's also that. I think that incestual idea is just once again, like, this movie taking its metaphor and then just taking it all the way. And I think and I think how far they push this movie is part of its charm, and part of what makes it so watchable is because it's kind of over the top. I think if this movie was really subtle, it would just be like, rich people are bad. Cool. Because then it would be like, because, like, you can't just make a hard right into the shunting scene. Like, you can't have this completely mumblecore, indie, very realistic, cinema verite drama about a kid who might be crazy and suspects his family of maybe doing something terrible, and then his best friend, or not his best friend, like the girl who's dating his sister, dies under mysterious circumstances, and things going, like, you can't just do all that and then suddenly be like, and by the way, bam, this is what's right. Yeah, like, beyond hard right. Like, that is a, there's a, you can
look at this ravine. Be really interesting. Like, we just drove into it.
It's the difference between drifting effortlessly into a car space and stopping, and trying to do that, but then hitting the curb and then rolling off the edge of a cliff. And, like, that's exactly what this movie would do if it went from very naturalistic to Cronenberg at the end. I don't think the movie would work. We wouldn't be talking about it. It would be like this. It would be a weird footnote of a footnote movie.
No, because, like, films like this, you have to go over the top. Otherwise, because, like you said, like, it didn't do well in the States, but now it's a cult hit. Like, it's considered a cult classic, and it's on, like, numerous lists, as I've seen. But that is because of how far it takes it, and just how over the top everything is. Everything down to the performances, in which case which is why I think it's very appropriate that they grabbed an actor from Days of Our Lives, because this thing is a soap opera, and soap operas are nothing if not over the top with themes that they need to hit you over the head with it.
Well, like take the tape recorder scene at the beach. Like, it would be so easy for that to be, hey, the guy runs up, hey, I got to talk to you, leave me alone, man, no, you got to listen to this, come over here with me. And then he plays the tape and they say some suspicious stuff, some stuff that could be taken in a particular way, maybe, but no. Instead, on the tape is what appears to be an incestual family orgy followed by a murder party. In which case you're like, hold on, I'm sorry, back up, what now?
And part of the murder party is also part of the incestuous gangbang.
Yeah, no, I mean,
happening.
I mean, yeah, it's, and that's the thing, is because the movie, because the movie does that, and it's not some super subtle implied thing, you immediately, it immediately kind of makes you lean in, because either this guy is totally nuts or like, I'm sorry, what's happening in this movie? Because most of the time in cult movies, this first turn tends to be something along the lines of like, and then when I was mowing the lawn, I noticed that everybody in the neighborhood was just staring at me. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like, it tends to be something kind of unsettling. There's a lady in the laundry room who told me a spooky story about how, like, the lady who used to rent my apartment killed herself. And you're like, all right, I mean, that sucks, but we're in the city, people kill themselves, and we are high up. So this would be the kind of apartment you do it from. Where like this is just like, oh no, like full on Days of Your Lives, like hard right into Crazy Town, immediately, which I think again helps out, helps make the tone land.
Yeah, and they picked a lot of actors whose performances were very over the top, like the Billy's girlfriend in this, not Clarissa, but his first girlfriend, super over the top.
Yeah, she's full on in a soap opera.
Oh yeah, shit. Like, this actress knows what kind of movie she's in. Like, by far, she absolutely does. But no, like, I am very glad that this movie got picked. Like, just for the fact that I had never seen it, but I was not let down by it. For folks wondering, like, if this is a movie that they should see, I would give you the answer of a very easy, oh, absolutely, yes, you should see it, because it's so weird. It's so weird. And that 20-minute, like, and even if you're like, this is weirding me out too much, I just don't know if I'm on board for this, the movie rewards its audiences tenfold in the last 20 minutes. Like, it is just the best of payoffs.
Okay, so David,
yes,
before we finish up here, is there anything else that you want to talk about? I've got 3 kind of quick things that I think we have to mention before we kind of get out of here, but I want to see if you've got anything left in your purse.
Thinking
I'm sorry, your European carry-all.
Hey, you know what? It's okay if I carry a purse. It's fine. I'm cool with it. But no, there's nothing in that purse. The purse is empty. Yeah, what do you get to fill my purse?
Okay, step 1. This movie has an incredible Stanley Kubrick reference in that that most of the shunting scene at the very end takes place to the theme of the Blue Danube, which is that ba da 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 ba 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 da da.
Oh yeah,
ba 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 ba. Just like I actually sat up in my chair when that happened, and I was like, that's awesome. That is some great stuff. Okay, so that was 1. 2, there is a line in this movie that flabbergasts me quite a bit, and that is when Latin Phoebe Cates says, "How do you take your tea? Cream, sugar, or do you want me to pee in it?"
Yes,
and I was like, "I'm
thank
sorry,
you, Ken.
Excuse me, what now?"
Yeah.
bacon powder, like ways. I don't. If you've listened to the commentary, or if there's something on the making of, please let us know. I mean, don't get me
Why?
wrong. I get that some people are into either drinking pee or watching other people drink their pee.
We're not here to yuck your yum.
Yeah, we're just being that since it doesn't come up in the movie, and it's very
Out of context.
nonchalantly, yeah, like it's very nonchalantly brought up. It's not one of those things that like they bring it up and then they both giggle a bunch, like they both get it's a big joke. Like he's kind of like, I'm sorry, what now? No, just tease, fine. And then the last thing that I want to mention is there is a great scene at a funeral that almost happened in this movie, and I wish it had. And that is a scene where they go up and they go to the funeral of their friend who has given them the tape, who's in the car wreck. And they're at the funeral, and he walks up and he touches the face because he doesn't think it looks real. And like it partially caves in and leaves a crack on this cheek. And the scene that I'm surprised is not in this movie is the scene you've seen in several sitcoms where someone like cuts a slice of the cake for themselves and starts eating it. And then like somebody's like, hey, who cut into the birthday cake? We're supposed to sing for them right now. But now I want you to imagine that you are at a funeral and you've just touched the corpse. And now there's like a hole in the cheek, but there's like people behind you. And you have to be all like, it's fine. Put the cover the hole.
Or that person has to be like, what? Who did this?
Yeah, no, exactly. We have to find out who got to the bottom of this. It's like that. I think you should leave sketch with the hot dog guy.
Yeah. I am surprised that neither of them tried to cover it up.
Yeah, no, like given the tone of this movie, that just seems like a scene. Now, mind you, that's also a scene I could 100% see them cutting. This movie is coming in at around 100 minutes. And
it's like 99 minutes.
Yeah, I could see that being a scene where they're like, look, this puts us in a 105, 106. Let's cut this out. But I thought that scene would have been really, really funny.
Yeah.
Oh, we also have to say, and this is a minor spoiler, but also just, it's true. The dad in this movie is a real butthead.
Yep. I really appreciate the actor just playing into it and just making fart noises with his mouth. Just being,
Oh, one more thing too. Couple
that's what movies, I would do.
A couple other movies this reminded me of that I wanted to bring up. That we we talked about Rosemary's Baby, we talked about From Beyond, Reanimator, obviously, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This movie also reminded me kind of a lot of The Wicker Man. Also, The Invitation, which is a really fun little independent movie from a couple of years ago.
I've heard of that film. I've never seen it. I keep meaning to watch it.
It's super good. I think it was on Shudder. It might not be anymore. We can take a look on that and maybe make that a list. But a guy who has recently broken up with his wife gets invited to a dinner party, and things get weird.
Yeah, I think the reason why I never watched is it just sounds so uncomfortable. And there are certain movies that really take me a long time to get to. If I'm like, I hate watching people get humiliated or embarrassed in a film. It irks me.
I get it.
And like in a Goofy movie, for example, just the fact that his father embarrasses him in the school. Like, I don't like scenes like, I don't know. For some reason, I'm just like, I don't want to watch this movie anymore.
But the whole point of that movie is that the whole point of the Goofy movie is that Max is in the wrong because Goofy is actually pretty awesome.
Like, no, I know. But I do remember when seeing it in the theaters, I kind of wanted to walk out of the movie as a kid because I don't like seeing people get embarrassed in public.
We will not have you say anything bad about Pauly Shore movies on this show, David. Pauly Shore squeezes the cheese in that movie, and let's be clear. I mean this 100% unironically. I stand the Goofy movie. Like, it's super good. It is one of the
absolutely. The Goofy movie is amazing, but it's me being like, no, here's this amazing movie that I'm just kind of like, because there's just like, if there's a scene of somebody like giving a presentation to a group of people and then get humiliated in front of that group of people, I want to do everything that I can to stay away from that scene as possible.
Okay. Teach their own.
It's I don't know why I did like, and this is coming from somebody who is an actor, so maybe I don't know if that's part of it,
Now,
but it's
the
never been
la-
something I've been worried about.
the last movie I want to mention is the movie that I thought actually kind of the most when watching this movie, but I think it's probably the movie people will think about the least. This movie totally reminds me of Wild Things. Like have you seen Wild Things? Denise Richards, Nev Campbell.
I am a warm-blooded man. Of course, I've seen Wild Things.
Okay, now I'm a
warm-blooded man who is in his 30s. I absolutely seen Wild Things.
Okay, I'm pretty sure Nev Campbell and Denise Richards could get Matt Dillon to this party. And kind of what happens to him along the way is pretty similar to what happens with Matt Dillon. There are people who, there's this higher society. There's all this illusion of like sex, but clearly something weird is going on underneath things. It's kind of weird and sweaty. There's a couple, there's a weird shower scene. There's a lot. Like, don't get me wrong, like they're not the same, but there was a lot of times where I was like, I wonder if John McNaughton is a fan of Brian Yuzna. Because that wouldn't surprise me, being that they're both, they're both kings of the B film. But just something I thought I would mention for all of our Wild Thing stands out there.
Fascinating. Now, Ken, if I'm to understand this correctly, we are not doing a poll for this next episode?
No, I have decided that we are going to do Near Dark because you haven't seen it.
No, I have
not. That makes me sad. We haven't done a female director in a little bit, so I wanted to throw a little love to Catherine Bigelow, and it's my show, and we do what I want. So that is why we are doing Near Dark next week.
Very well, Ken.
Well, David, then do you have any plugs that you want to plug?
I do, in fact. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at _DW Marlowe, where I can get up to my regular musings and such. You can also follow our Shutter Show page on Instagram that I manage, which is at Shutter_show. We will not be doing a poll this week as we will be watching Near Dark, but the next time we do a poll, that is where it will be.
Or maybe we just do a poll that just says, "Are you excited for us to do Near Dark?"
I mean, we could.
Yeah, why not? Let's see what happens.
Takes no time at all.
Yeah.
But yeah. What about you, Ken? You got anything to pitch?
Let's see here.
Pluggables?
You can check me out on Instagram and Twitter at Ken Stachnik, KenStachnik. You can check out my dog, the official Shutter Show mascot, at Freddy Potatoes, on both of those as well. And then you can also check us out on Twitter at Shutter Show, and you can email us at shuttershow@gmail.com. And other than that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of the internet, good night, good luck, and most important,
go fuck yourself.